What is the most used man-made material on Earth? You guessed it, concrete. Look around, it's everywhere. Sidewalks, driveways, foundations, floors you stand on, and even entire buildings are made from concrete. So why don't we discuss it more? In each episode of Concrete Logic, we will explore one concrete-related topic with the help from industry professionals that are shaping the future of the trade. We'll talk with suppliers, contractors, architects, engineers, specialists, and even some proponents of competing materials about their views of concrete and their vision of its future. Welcome to another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. Today I have Jamie Grimmelsman with Metromont. Jamie, we haven't seen each other for almost 20 years, so it's good to see you today. But could you give a little introduction to yourself and your background, please?
Yeah, I'm Jamie Grimmelsman. I work for Metromont Precast in Florida as a South Florida sales or business and sales development manager. Been in concrete all my life. Started in the 90s and 80s, pouring sidewalks with my dad on the weekend, and went into the commercial concrete construction. Spent some time there. Also was in civil engineering, for a short time as a land surveyor. But really, my love and passion was in concrete. So returned to concrete and entered something that was foreign to me, which was precast concrete industry.
Yeah. So Jamie and I worked together long time ago, almost a couple decades ago, and Jamie was a field engineer, and he showed me the ropes. This is the guy that let me cut my teeth in concrete. So I wanted to thank you, Jamie. You were one of the guys I always remembered that helped me get started in this crazy world that we call the concrete industry. So thank you, first off. And wanted to today we're going to talk about precast. And if you were going to tell someone about precast, how would you describe what precast concrete is?
Precast concrete is something that's cast in a reusable mold, and it's produced in an off-site environment and then transported to the construction site. So what we, in simpler terms, it's a set of Legos that is made in a factory and moved to a location that may not be able to use traditional construction methods for building a structure. A good example of that would be, I think that one of the earliest precast projects I was able to find in my research from years ago was down in New Zealand. It was a lighthouse that there was no on-site room to build, so they cast the concrete blocks off-site and shipped them to an island and installed them in place.
Huh. And was that welded like they do now, or?
I think
No?
they
just
used
stacked
yeah, it was a stacked gravity connection. I think it was more, they used more masonry type joining systems. But yeah, we have evolved. Now there is a difference between when we get further into the industry, precast and pre-stressing is. Pre-stressing is actually using cable pulled to strength that actually will reduce the need of mild reinforcement. You're basically pulling a 7-wire strand, at very high tension, and casting the concrete around it. And then as that concrete cures, then that energy is released back in the strand is actually cut, and the energy is stored in the concrete itself. So what it does is it eliminates a lot of need for mild reinforcement, and it's very effective way. It's pre-stressing's been around for a lot of years. It's a proven method, but and then where we would consider traditional precast would be mild reinforcement. Maybe custom form type stuff would be more of a precast, what we would call a precast product, would have no pre-stressing included in it.
Right. Yeah, like you said, that pre-stressed is a way for them to reduce the amount of traditional reinforcement rebar in the precast pieces, which essentially makes it a lighter, makes it lighter as well as far as transportation. Is that right?
That's
too?
correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And just raw materials. We're not using as many steel. We're using almost the same amount of concrete. So if you took a traditional column, for instance, it may have 10 or 13, 14, number 11 bars. We're not doing anything near that with pre-stressing. We may have 4 strand run through that column, about the same amount of concrete. So that's a good example of just the reduction in weight and materials needed to produce a column.
Right. And then for like in cast in place concrete, in a post tension slab, we also often sell the idea to folks that have a project where they have traditional reinforcement rebar in the slab, and tell them that they can, if we use post tensioning cable, that we can make the slab thinner. And the same goes for precast, right? When you use the pre-stress cable, the slab for, say, like a parking garage is much thinner in a precast slab than a traditionally reinforced slab.
Yeah, that's correct. When you go to look at span to depth ratios, post tension and pre-stress concrete, far exceed any other system. We may be able to get a span to work out of a 4-inch, 4-inch flange section that would otherwise require a 12-inch slab if it was mild reinforced, traditionally.
Right. So when you're looking, at projects and they say, hey, can you evaluate this as a possible as a precast solution? I guess, what are you looking at, and what does an ideal precast project look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's what we do almost on a daily basis as sales and business development. Is to take a project. We have a lot of clients that like our system, and they want to utilize it in almost every application that they can, just from some of the advantages that the precast offers. So what the first thing I look at is the geometry, to see if it's a good fit. If we see a lot of cantilevered slabs, things of that nature, that's a little more difficult or challenging to do with precast pre-stress product, whereas it might lend itself more to post tension system. The load path is really a critical thing. What we want to do is get straight lines going down to the footing. So usually, if I can't see any advantage of that, or where we could do repeatable designs, then it may not be the best fit for a pre-stressed system. But then there's other things that we can do, based on a lot of project history. And what I try to do when I evaluate a project is look at what have we done in the past that might be applied to this roadblock that may occur in a project that we're evaluating. So we do a lot of that kind of evaluation too, where we'll really go into depth and you gather the history of projects and see if we can come up with a solution. And that's basically what we do on a daily basis. So we may look at 3 to 5 projects a week, and that's where we spend most of our time is doing those types of evaluations. Other things to take into consideration is site access. If we can't get trucks to the site, then it's difficult. It may not lend itself to our system. Such as in Florida, what we have are a lot of barrier islands, and a lot of people want to use precast because they see the advantages of it, but very difficult to get precast on an island sometimes. So it's logistics. We look a lot at site logistics, not just the project site, but from our manufacturing facility to get to the construction site is something we need to take into account. So the perfect precast project would be one right next to our plant in a big open field, but we don't often see that. We see difficult sites, but what we really look at is the repeatability. So if we can use the form multiple times without changing the configuration of it, that's where we get economy of scale in precast. If we can reuse the same form, it just drives the cost per use down. The other thing we want to do is maximize the piece size that can be shipped. We want to maximize the square foot shipped. So, if we could if we could combine a span, say they have a 40-foot spans, if we can, make that work with a 80-foot double T and just clear span that, that's an advantage. It does have a disadvantage in hauling, but the challenge we have on site is the crane doesn't care if a piece of precast is a 3 by 3 foot slab or if it's a 70-foot double T. It costs the same amount to set that piece of precast. So what we really want to do is aim to reduce the number of pieces, maximize square footage shipped. So those are really the ideal. There may be ideal geometries, but those are really the keys that we look to see if it's a really good fit for the project.
Yeah. So repeatable patterns would be like parking garages, student housing, multifamily. What else? What else am I missing?
We could even go into bridge beams, piling. I mean, there's outside of what we do at Metromont, there's a number of precasters that have made a good living off of doing precast piling, precast everything from light poles to docks for boats. I mean, there's just numerous applications for the products.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking about what I run against every day. So I don't typically look at that stuff, but yeah, I mean, if you look around, you see that stuff all the time. Those even down to like pots for plants. Those are precast, right?
Yeah, repeatability.
Yeah.
That's really the key is the more uses you could get out of a mold, the lower the economy of scale, the lower the cost it is.
Yeah. What so something that I'm sure you and I are I don't want to say combating, that's a bad word, but being challenged with is the new kind of carbon credit construction, I've been calling it, where they want you to offset the carbon footprint of whatever construction material you're using for a project. how have you all been approaching that, and what ideas have you shared with folks concerned with that?
I'm not directly involved in, the carbon neutralization. I know about it because of our industry. We have a group of people at our corporate office that are uh, researching ways to lower the carbon footprint of our mix designs, things of that nature. It's not something I'm directly involved in, so I don't want to speak to what's being done. The precast industry as a whole is through PCI, which is our national trade organization. It is a topic of conversation, and precasters are always trying to innovate. So a challenge like that is something that they will take a hold of and get the best minds in the room to deal with. And most of it, I think, what's going to help is the designs of new mix designs, new aggregate types, um, new. There's just a lot of new innovation taking place uh, to try to offset. We all know that the process of making cement is very, very energy intensive. And I think the industry has done a good job of recognizing that, just by switching types of cement. And, we're just always been getting creative with mixed designs and try to find the new aggregates, or, using recycled glass is a good example, or blast slag. It used to be fly ash was such a big uh, a big secondary use for a byproduct, but we have in the industry looked at some other options for aggregates to be creative. Recycled concrete is another one of those. So I think there's going to be a lot of advancements in those types of mixes that will help the industry.
Yeah. Well, I think we're just in the crosshairs because people use concrete so much, and they love concrete so much, and it's so easy to use, and it has so many advantages over other materials. Um, so it gets used a lot, and I think it's based on more of the well, I know for a fact it's based more on the volume of the amount of concrete is used versus other materials, and that's why it's getting so much attention, at least in our industry. I don't think regular folks care, but anyhow, we'll move off that subject to keep us both out of trouble.
Well,
But
I want to one thing I do want to say about it, that, and especially here in Florida, you know, yes, it is a product that uses a lot of energy to manufacture, a lot of raw material, but it's also one of the most durable materials in Florida, and more specifically, uh, Florida Precast Concrete Association. They've really kind of jumped on board the resiliency, working towards resiliency, building resilient buildings, and really putting a lot of effort and time and money into um, try to get that message of, yes, it is a product that is very energy intensive to make, yet it has a lifespan that is resilient to natural disasters, to uh, reconstruction efforts after natural disasters, um, resilient to the environment. So, it is. I think that's what, when I view concrete, that's what I view as being almost a neutral product.
yeah,
Insurance companies love it.
yeah, you're not knocking it down.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that is the big challenge. I think I've talked about on a prior podcast, but I think that's the big challenge, is to get folks thinking in 50, 60, 70 years down the road, saying these are concrete structures, precast, cast in place, whatever. These structures will stay up for decades, multiple decades down the road, and there's no tearing it up, tearing it down, and putting something back up, or catching on fire and it burning to the ground and having to put something back up. I mean, concrete has literally been around for thousands and thousands of years. There's places in the world where concrete structures were put up and they're still standing, and it's literally hundreds and thousands of years. It's crazy. So, but I think that's the biggest challenge, is to get everyone's mindset around that. But that's very difficult these days. So we were talking about ideal projects. I think Roland, a good thing to discuss at this point, what is this? It's July 1st, 2022, and we're seeing some maybe some easing in the market as far as demand. What are you seeing in the precast world right now, as far as how is projects progressing? How's I guess demand for your product? Is it waning, or what are you seeing?
What I'm seeing is, it's been very consistent, especially in the southeastern United States. We're seeing a lot of requests for products or product uses that we had not traditionally seen, based on a shortage of steel. We're looking at a lot of projects that have precast roofs instead of a traditional bar joist and deck roof system. We're just seeing a lot of things across the board that were traditionally not precast uses, but because of the advantages that we have in the manufacturing and in the installation, that people are kind of looking for ways to reduce their risk. We have seen a little bit of drop off on projects, more commercial projects, but residential has really been a very strong market, and we're seeing increased demand for anything to do with multifamily housing. And probably a lot of that is due to Florida. There's a massive movement of people into the state. I think in the magnitude of about 5,000 people a week.
Holy cow.
So in each one of these developers that we work with, when these jobs are breaking ground, they said we already have like a wait list of people to get an apartment. So it's that has been a really market driver. So I don't think that in Florida we would see a dip like we saw in 2008, where housing was completely dried up the market for the construction industry. With the movement of people and the underbuilding since 2008, 2007 of housing, there's still just not enough inventory to keep up with population growth. So Florida's been a beneficiary of that. So we do see still a lot of project movement, in the right direction. There's still a lot of projects being developed. I think right now the uncertainty of costs, with building materials in general, is kind of slowed a lot of those projects. And that's one of the advantages, I think, that people look for precast is concrete historically doesn't have sharp spikes in pricing as other building materials. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the developers and the contractors can sleep a little bit better at night knowing that their concrete number is not going to double. You know, other building materials, the glass industry,
Wood.
steel, wood,
Yeah.
they've all had these big spikes over the last year, and you know, a project where maybe, our price hasn't really changed, but they say the project's not moving on because the window cost doubled, and we have 800 apartment units with windows in them. So it's a big cost impact for them. So I think they do feel some safety within the structure using concrete and precast, because we are able to control our costs. Obviously, we're at the mercy of shipping costs and material spikes, but it's not as big of a swing. You may see a 5 to 10% versus other materials that I'm hearing 20, 25, 35% swings in price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a great point. So you're seeing more, you would be safe to say you're seeing more residential projects versus commercial projects?
Yes. But also with that movement, we have seen a lot more industrial projects that traditionally weren't projects you would see in Florida. There's some manufacturers moving to Florida
Mm.
from northern states. So we are seeing a little bit more commercial industrial work than what's been traditional in the past. More development inland in the center of the state. It used to be the big cities in the coast, Orlando and any coastal city were the biggest uh, users of precast, but we're seeing it more different regions of the state where, because of industrial companies coming in and building manufacturing, people want to live in Florida. They want to work at where they can vacation. So it's driving a lot of businesses down here, and so we are seeing more um, Class A office construction. Um, Distribution is really, yeah, there was an uptick in distribution, and so a lot of different market products that we have that we're able to get into. So, or at least try to come up with a solution for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely been an influx of the great migration to Florida of recent.
Yep.
uh, all right. Well, I think that's a good spot for us to end today. If folks want to reach out to you, Jamie, and learn more about you, or have questions about Precast, or want to talk to you about Metromont, what's the best way to reach out?
Best way to reach out is by phone, or if you go to www.metromont.com. Under the Florida market, you'll find um, my contact information. I don't want to take up the rest of your podcast with my long last name, so but at metromont.com has my contact information, my cell phone, and an email on there.
Yeah, that's great, and I'll put that in the show notes, so everybody, when we publish the podcast, you guys can get that information. Jamie, thank you again for doing this. It was great to see you and catch up, and we'll have to do it again.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, great catching up with you after all this time. It feels like there's been no time passed between us.
That's right. Yeah, feel the same way.
Yep.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, man. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. If you like what you heard and you think others would get some kind of value out of this podcast, please share it with them. If you have any ideas or topics that you'd like us to discuss on the Concrete Logic Podcast, you can email me at seth@concretelogicpodcast.com or hit me up on LinkedIn. Pretty active there. Again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.